a set of rules that were instilled into me, do you know what I mean, when I first started tattooing, that I think looking back at it in hindsight were not just for the tattoos, but they were also very character building for an industry that can break someone quite quickly if you're not quite mentally strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of tattoo artists parade the fact, but like go around parading burnouts, like as if there's something to be proud of. And I'm really sort of strong on the fact that if what you get out of this industry is what you put into it. Like you have to work your ass off.
And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's not actually a tattoo.
How do you approach that though? Would you just be like, would you send them other reference, or would you straight up tell them,
yeah,
this is Photoshopped?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alex Lloyd and this is a 21st Century Tattoo. Sweet, good stuff. Tommy, thanks so much for having us, mate.
No worries,
I appreciate you being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. It's nice to meet you both, and obviously I'm excited to hear what you've got to ask me.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm going to try and make sure it's not too much of a grilling.
100%.
But yeah, sweet. I've been doing a little bit of research. Like I followed you for a while. Love your stuff.
Thank you.
You've got a really kind of distinct style, and it looks as if you kind of had quite an interesting way into the industry.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that maybe you started back in 2012?
Yeah.
And if so, how do you think that the industry maybe has changed since then? Also now we're 10 years?
Hugely. Like when I first started, it was very much still in the... I started tattooing, to be fair, 12 years ago. I think my Instagram goes back to 2012.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a period in between where...
Before that?
I don't really count, because it was like in between, just out of my apprenticeship into sort of where I was still learning, but obviously being paid on clients and whatnot. So it was that sort of era as to where it was very old school. I was taught very old school. You know, my apprenticeship was as old school as it could be, literally. Yeah. So I never sort of realised there was two sides to the industry. Do you know what I mean? It took me a long time to realise that change because of who I was around. Do you know what I mean? So the change for the industry for me was kind of where I wanted to take my work. You know, like I come from a street shop, so I was very much pushed towards that side of the industry. You know, like, and the change for me come from my Instagram was huge. Like social media was massive. But it was more when I started seeing the other side of things and was kind of like, okay, I want to pursue that. Do you know what I mean? Rather than where I was sort of taught from as such. So
I see.
I found it quite hard, man, to be honest with you. Like when I realised sort of, I honestly say to this day, I've been tattooing 12 years. For me, I've been tattooing in my head 6 years.
Okay. Why does it feel like that? The first, 4 weeks was so much of a struggle? Yeah,
it was a big struggle because I knew I always drew in graphite and drew in pencil and whatnot. So I always knew I wanted to concentrate on black and grey, but because of the environment I was in, I wasn't able to do that. You know, so those years for me, I learned a lot of fundamentals in tattooing, and I'm very appreciative of that because I can always go back to that if I need to.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of tattoos that I sort of looked at myself and were kind of like, no, do you know, I can change. It took like 1 or 2 tattoos for me to literally have, and I'm sure, have you had one? Like with 1 or 2 tattoos where you go, it clicks like in your head, and then...
When I was first starting?
Or like throughout those first couple of years, like and then you do one tattoo and you're like, that's how I need to do a tattoo.
Yeah, I guess so. Like maybe. I mean, when I look back at the stuff now, like you can see the progress.
Yeah.
For me, maybe it felt a little bit more just like a real slow burner.
Yeah.
And it's like little wins in it. You're like,
yeah, 100%.
Well, that's kind of how I need to be like running a lot of it, to be fair. I kind of had a very traditional apprenticeship, but it was quite hands off as well. Yeah. And I just got kind of left to do a lot of the stuff and figure it out myself.
Yeah, same, yeah.
And you know what it's like as well? It's almost like you just need to get bodies through the door,
100%. Different
skin types to actually appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe, I don't feel like it just clicked necessarily for me.
Was there a point in your tattoo sort of where you got to a point where you're like, that's a level that you're happy with?
Do you know what? Maybe only even very recently.
Yes,
and even now, like I can't say I'm happy with everything I produce.
I'm never happy with any of them, man. Like that's what I mean. I think that change in the industry for me was kind of a change in the industry, but also a change in how I viewed my work, you know, entirely. Because when the change happened in the industry, it pushed people towards having validation from an outsider's point of view from social media and whatnot, you know, whereas previous to that, it was only ever the people that I was surrounded by in the shop. And if they weren't doing the style that I kind of knew I wanted to go towards, how would I ever kind of get that advice or kind of, right, okay, this is what you need to do. Do you know what I mean? So that the change for me come from having social media and seeing the other artists where I was like, oh shit, like that's actually achievable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
so like talking from 2012, like when did you really start noticing your socials pick up?
There was one literally that I went and guested with Yasin. I owed so much to him. Like I learned more in a guest spot with him within 5 days than I did in 6 years of tattooing.
Okay.
Literally. And I tattooed with him one day. I'll never forget it either because we done 14-hour day. And I did a big old lion on a pit and it had like these swirls coming around here and whatnot. And that was the first one that got attention sort of on social media. And then from there, I started sort of seeing other artists, you know, that were kind of not giving me validation because I don't feel like I ever needed it, but the respect, do you know what I mean? Like from someone else was important to me. You know, it was always very important, but it took going to come out of my comfort zone and going to someone else in another shop, do you know what I mean, to see that. Like as soon as I saw Yasin do it, like how he worked and whatnot, I was like, that's crazy. Do you know what I mean? I'd never seen that kind of stuff before. And within that period of that 5 days that I said to you, it felt like it went bang in my head. And I was like, that's how I need to sort of approach a tattoo, you know?
Yeah.
But it took a lot to go and do that without having the social media and everything else. Unfortunately now, I love social media, you know, like I think it's a good tool. But I do think that there are people that predominantly work for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a bad,
it's an aesthetic. No, I get what you're saying.
In a bad way, you know. Like, I'm very appreciative that I come from the era where it wasn't there, like in tattooing, because I saw sort of how difficult it could be to gain. Never in my life, in my apprenticeship, did I see someone fly in to come and get a tattoo, or travel to go and get a tattoo that was not their local shop or anything like that, you know. So it was always that element of the old school way of you go in, there was a portfolio there, you picked it out. That was how it was. And then when I saw that change and everyone was traveling, everyone was doing guest spots and whatnot, it was a completely different world, you know, like to what it was. So it helped. And I think it does help. But in the same instance as well, I never wanted to be, and I'm sure you'll agree with this as well, like doing your podcast and stuff. When you become a tattoo artist, I never thought I was going to be a content creator at all.
No.
You know, like not even just doing like reels and stuff, you know, like the new stuff on Instagram and whatnot. If you don't adapt, like how do you stay relevant? Do you know what I mean? So there's
completely,
yeah.
It's one of those things that I just didn't. I mean, I actually, when I started, I did like my whole apprenticeship and wasn't really on Instagram, and then at that point I kind of then started kickstarting it.
Yeah,
and it's like it sounds like really dramatic, but it is. You have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
because it is so important.
It is important. But I think it's nice to sort of be able to take yourself away from it a little bit. You know, like there's a lot of honestly, mate. I've got more than 200 drafts like, on my Instagram
posts
of stuff that I've just, you know what I mean, that I've not been able to post or I haven't got time to do and stuff like that. You know, and that's. I'm sure you have clients, you know what I mean, that would say, why haven't you posted my photo on Instagram, you know, like, and stuff like that. I've saw a lot of posts recently, actually. I can't remember the name of the artist. It was a local one around here, actually. That was explaining why they weren't sending designs over a couple of days before. Like, so
it was a reel. I think I know what you're on about. I think I've seen it. Yeah, it was going around.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the reason your artist isn't posting the tattoo isn't because they don't like the tattoo necessarily. It's because the lighting might not have been right 100%. Or it might not fit with the style that they're doing 100%. At the moment. Or
100%. And I think clients don't know that, you know? So like we're talking about that change within the industry, but to a client who is used to having a certain sort of service, if they're from a generation where that is the only service they get, or they haven't got the knowledge to be able to know that the industry has changed, how do we sort of portray that over to them? Do you know what I mean? Without it looking like we're just trying to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I find that very difficult, and I think that change in the industry also like changed for clients as well. Like, so I'd never seen people travel. I'd never seen people fly in to get work done or fly into a convention and stuff like that. So the change in the industry was good.
Is it for for the better?
I believe it will be if people are willing to adapt to it. You know, that stubbornness that comes along with the older side of tattooing and whatnot. I've got all respect for that, because I think you have to respect the people that paved the way, do you know what I mean, for the industry. But I don't ever see it going back to what it was previously.
No.
You know, I think the way the world is just in general, you know, like everything turning digital and whatnot, like how much how machines and everything have adapted or progressed in the last 5 years and whatnot.
Even the styles of tattooing.
100%.
Like, look at the single needle work now, like that
100%.
sort of stuff, it was just never possible.
No.
Maybe then applying that logic to your style.
Yeah.
What can you see that is possible in that? I mean, how would you define your style?
For me, I predominantly do horror now, so I would say it's more of a surrealism, like than any. I wouldn't class it as realism, you know, because there's times when if I'm doing a horror face, I won't look at the image and we'll just add bits into it, you know, or take bits away and stuff like that. So I would say it's
dark, black and grey surrealism.
Dark surrealism more than anything, you know. I approach it how Colour Eyes would to a degree, like in saturation and everything else. So,
and how, like, there maybe with the advancement, like we're talking about, like the stuff advancing, like the quality of the inks, the machines, the needles and stuff, like, are there things that you can achieve with your work now that you wouldn't have been able to achieve back?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, 1,000,000%. I learnt with coils. So, and I only ever went to like rotary works next, but I'd never, and then it was like inkjectors and stuff like that. So there was a good 6-7 years like where I was still on coils and a standard direct drive rotary. So the stuff that, how long you can spend on an area, I think skin wise is drastically been extended, you know, like there's, compared to what you could if you were running a coil when I first started, you know, it just wouldn't,
like one pass and then the skin's like churned up.
100%, you know. So those, the new machines and whatnot allow you to approach a tattoo in a more creative sense, I think, rather than it being very regimented, like as to how you do it, like what we were saying earlier, you know, like how some people are kind of very programmed, like how they go from top to bottom kind of thing. If you are one of those people that doesn't like doing that and you're kind of going from here to here or quite sporadic with it, if you're using a coil, it's hard to do that. You know, it's very hard to do that. So yeah, I think that the technology has allowed me to be able to spend longer on the skin and basically kind of, what's the word for it? Kind of, the easy way to explain it is the way I kind of work now is I work on a layer basis.
Oh, okay.
Rather than doing it all in one hit. I think because I do a lot of large scale tattoos, so I get to see them, some of the back pieces I do, I see them 18 months healed. So I can see how the ink is settling into that person's skin, like what skin type they are.
What it needs more of,
fine. And in some instances, obviously over the years, we only learn from our mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Not mistakes, but you learn from
but it is trial and error.
Yeah, a progression thing, you know? So when I can see that sort of nearly 2 years healed within a certain skin type, if it's not something that I'm happy with, I know that I'm to approach that differently on another piece, you know? So with those needles and with those machines and whatnot, it allows me to work on a layer basis, so I can sort of stop at a point rather than taking it too far, do you know what I mean? Or going a bit too dark in an area or whatnot, like within a first hit, and then not getting that client back in or never seeing a back piece again and whatnot. You'd have no idea what that looks like within 5 years. You know, so I've learned,
which is not good because your name's on that work, you know.
100%, yeah. So there's an element of learning like later down the line as well. I saw I can never remember, I was telling all the guys in here recently, a post on Instagram recently, it was a lady who had been tattooing more than 23 years. It's crazy, right? Like and she was showing pictures of tattoos that were more than between like 10 and 18 years healed, and how she was basically saying you need to leave like a 5mm gap between any line in tattooing if you want it to heal so it doesn't close together, you know, like within, and she was proving it as well with some of the tattoos. She'd done lettering with a 7-liner that had nigh on disappeared. The person's skin had broken it down, you know, within that period. And she, obviously the tattoo was done correctly to start with, but that person's skin over the years had literally broken it down. So all of that's what I try and go longevity, like on all of my tattoos, you know, like there's only so much you can approach or show someone on Instagram before you start showing them something that's not achievable.
Yeah, and that is a very good point. Is client expectations now
100%.
with social media, I feel, are just up here.
Yeah.
And there is a pressure to perform. I get sent references because of the style that I do, and I do a lot of the real small stuff. I'm trying to do more of that.
Yeah.
I'm then getting sent stuff through Pinterest, which is genuinely, it's not even a tattoo. It's been photoshopped onto the person, but the client believes that that's a tattoo because it's been edited to look like one for Pinterest. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's not actually a tattoo.
How do you approach that though? Would you just be like, would you send them other reference, or would you straight up tell them, this is photoshopped?
Yeah, 100%. I just have to you just have to use as much of your knowledge and experience to try and explain and try and guide them and say, listen, that's not going to be possible, or that's not going to at least be possible in the place that you want it on.
100%.
And half the time, like, they've been so set on having it in that placement, or having the thing upside down, or having it like on a crease of a wrist, or you know, anywhere, like, and it's just so client expectations, are you kind of, have you seen that with anything coming through into your work and your style?
100%. Yeah, I mean, a lot of my clients are what's the word for it? Like the way I kind of try and approach a client, like if I'm doing a consultation and whatnot, is I have to be honest. I'm too anxious, man. I just sit there and sort of say to someone, this is what I can achieve, like on your skin type, you know, like depending on what skin type that is. Like, and I'm still learning with that now, you know, like there's people that come through where I sort of think to myself, oh, I'm going to be able to do this with on their skin and whatnot. And, you know, like, and you learn a couple of weeks down the line how they heal and whatnot. And it's everybody is different. I think there's your standard skin types that we can all recognize if someone comes through the door. Yeah.
Or like tones at least.
Yeah, tones.
But then I feel like sometimes you only really, it's only that first line, that first pass that you
100%.
You learn.
Yeah, 100%.
And some, by that point, you know, you're kind of having to like learn on the fly and adapt.
Definitely. And I think with the expectation as well is how long they expect it to take. That's something I really struggle with, you know, like over the years, I used to approach a tattoo that if I was doing like a sleeve and whatnot, if I was to do a forearm, I would feel bad for not getting that completed within one session for the client, you know, like rather than for me. I knew deep down that we should split it for their sort of pain threshold and whatnot, but I obviously always wanted to give them the most of what they expect out of a day session, you know, whereas now I try to approach it and say, look, if we're doing like a large scale piece, like we'll split into sections, and however long that takes is however long that takes, rather than when they see me doing like a leg sleeve and whatnot, because it's hard to, for me anyway, I find it really hard to gain a lot of content on my progress of my work to show them how it's actually done and what's done within a day and whatnot. They come through and expect a leg sleeve to take 3-4 days, you know, like, and there's times where I spend 3-4 days on the outside of a thigh, and sometimes more, depending on how big their leg is, you know. So they come through and see these pieces that I upload from like stencil to finished piece, and because they don't see the in-between of it, when I approach it with them in a consultation, they see how long it takes, how many layers it's going to take, how long it takes to put the white in, you know, like it's hard to sort of tell them, what's the word? I can't think of the words.
Like it's just kind of balancing their expectations with reality.
It's hard. Like it is really hard, you know, and I've got a lot slower as well, like throughout the years. So I've got clients who I tattooed 6 years ago who I would have done a forearm on within a day, you know, and they'll come through now and I'll say, no, it takes 2 days. Now, so again, like that's what I was trying to say to you earlier, like how do you approach that change with a client through your work as well, you know, because when you go a few years down the line and whatnot, and you've got a certain way you want to do things, and you've got clients you tattooed within your first year, how do you say that to them without it coming across as if you're?
I can't. I've had to send some pretty difficult emails. Like, I'm very fortunate now that I am kind of getting people coming to me now for my style, only very recently.
Yeah.
So I'm having to kind of prioritize that work. I say
100%.
prioritize, only really try and do that work. And
definitely.
I have got stuff that's been ongoing where some people have started a sleeve or a patchwork sleeve from years ago.
Yeah.
And they've to get like one tattoo a year.
Yeah.
And like, just in over that year, like it's changed so much.
Definitely.
And I've had to say, listen, I've got limited space and I need to focus on what I can do well and what I'm, do you know what 100%. I mean? I don't think there is any easy, an easy way to do it. I guess you just got to kind of try and push that they are going to get the work that they want, but they need to, like, we're only human, we're not robots. But then on the flip side, a couple of episodes ago, I was chatting with Pengers. I don't know if you've heard of Pengers. And the work he's doing is he's getting like full legs out in like 7.5 hours. And it's crazy. And it's like two ends of this. So you've kind of got like clients have got different expectations, 100%. I guess.
100%.
I mean, do you tend to do a lot of that consultation via email and kind of discuss all of that stuff then and there, or is it done on the day? Or
if it's, again, this is a big learning curve for me. Like over the years, was I used to do a lot of it via email, and then when they'd come in on the day, it was more sizing up. And there was a lot of times where I would estimate how long a leg sleeve would take, you know, like, and we've all been sent photos of someone who looks 5'10" and they're 6'8".
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and when they walk through the door, you're like,
that's going to take
double the size, like, type of thing, you know. Like, and if I always used to find that incredibly awkward I never really give like a full estimate of sort of how much it's going to cost.
Are you pricing by hour or are you just pricing by piece?
By day.
By day.
Day.
So you only work really in days.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
I will, if a client can't sit, I'll happily accommodate whatever a client's needs are. Do you know what I mean? In regards, if they can't, I can't sit a full day anymore. So I understand if someone can only sit 4 hours and whatnot. But with how my bookings are and sort of how the way I do my pieces and whatnot, I've kind of taken a new approach. So I will, if someone comes in for a consultation, I need them to book in at least sort of 3-4 sessions or maybe 5 sessions so I can get my teeth stuck into it.
Yeah.
And then there's not huge gaps in between, so the work's looking incredibly different, you know, because I think just if you're not progressing 2 years, if you can put 2 tattoos next to each other, bang next to each other, 2 years apart, and they don't look different,
then
we're not doing our job right. To a degree, you know, like we should be progressing like as an artist, you know, and I've always found that really hard, like to see my work. Not that I don't like it, I just see the progression in it and I want to add what I know now to the previous piece, you know, so I always find for me, I have to be in the same mindset, the client's in the same mindset. They know the work is going to look the same throughout the whole piece.
But how do you, because I'm struggling with this at the moment, how do you approach that? Because someone will come in, send a reference of like, right, I want my whole leg done.
Yeah.
And I want it like miniature realism with some geometric elements to tie everything together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sweet, I'm down for that. But this only works if you can commit to, like you said,
100%.
book like 4 or 5 days in to break the back of it.
Yeah.
Because I can't just do the first piece and then you not come back in for a year to then try and connect all of the work,
100%.
especially with the geometric stuff.
Hard.
It is hard. And we need to sit down and plan all of those elements and how it's all going to go together.
Definitely.
Otherwise, there's no point doing it. So then I'm saying to them, like, can you commit to this? You understand that it's going to take this long and it's going to cost this much.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But they only book in one session. So it's like, right, well...
Do you find as well where you're doing the geometric stuff, if you're sizing it up a year down the line, like if their body shape changes,
so
like
all of
if
these
your lines or your dots are not like, that must be, that would throw me off entirely, you know, like that far down. I find it hard, but I try and keep my stencils as simple as I can. But I've had it, you know, very recently as well with a few clients as well, where they've lost a lot of weight or they've put a lot of weight on or they've just kind of changed body shape, gone to the gym, you know, got ripped, that type of stuff, and I'm doing a sleeve and then all of a sudden the forearm doesn't fit anymore. You know, like, and that's really hard, like, to be able to that period in between, you know, you never know what's going to happen, you know, with a client. So for me, it sounds really harsh and I had to kind of I had to do it for my own like mental health, mate, more than anything. Like I'd get to a point where I was stressing so much, you know, like about my gaps in between appointments and trying to fit in around guest spots and everything else, that I had to say to people, if you can't do this, then we'll do it later down the line.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I would rather not send that client to someone else, like, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but I'd rather be ready for that client to be able to give him everything I can and then receive the best out of me, you know? So if I know that's a certain way of how I create best, I'd rather turn them down and say, look, come back in a few months when I've got a few months period where we can fit those appointments in and it's good for you. And there's times I'd drop the prices, you know, like, so I can get that bit like broken
Done.
in, yeah, you know, like, and then I know I'm not going to stress for the rest of it.
Yeah.
A lot of my conventions are the same thing, you know,
Yeah,
like I'll do 3 pieces, so they're not stressed.
That's the sign of an artist who cares about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd
keeps me
rather
up at
get
night,
that
man.
work done well.
Yeah.
And get those clients in and get that stuff finished for cheaper, and it's not about making the money.
100%.
So yeah, that is a really good way of approaching it.
100%. You know, like, I know many artists that do the same, like throughout conventions, that will say to a client, like, well, I mean, I'm never finished at a convention to be able to enter it into a competition. So I'm so slow, man, like with tattooing. So to get something finished by 5 o'clock or whatever for me is impossible. So, but I know artists that will say to clients, come to this convention, we'll do something that's in my style, we'll take it healed, we'll do a couple of touch-up sessions on it, don't pay for the tattoo, but pay for your flights and your hotels so you can come to this and this, and you get to showcase your best work, you know, like, whereas I think a lot of, when I first started going to them, I thought all of these people were paying for all their appointments, and a lot of them are, you know, but if you've got a friend who you know
you're on about conventions.
Yeah. Or just any sort of, even guest spots I've done it at. You know, if I take someone, you want to showcase your best work. I've got a best pal who's got a horror sleeve that I've done on him, and I know he's going to sit 10 hours. I would much rather take, do you know what I mean, him to a session and do something that I love to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would. Do you know what I mean? If
yeah, I've done it before. Yeah, definitely.
It's worth doing.
Especially when you're in an environment that you're not used to, and you're
100%.
You're going in there, you don't know where any of the equipment is.
Yeah, it's the worst.
You're already like, I feel like one of the really important factors of guest spotting is just like, it's just kind of meeting and networking and meeting other artists.
100%.
That to me is probably more important than kind of just getting the exposure or wherever we are, you know? Definitely. So I would want to take someone with me who I, at least on the first day.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
If you could guess with any artist, who would it be?
Oh my God. It has to
Who's your favourite geometric artist?
See, that style, the style that I do, I really appreciate. They're not, I mean, Midday P, really good. Sweden, he's sick. His work is insane. John Montero is insane, but then that work is more surrealist than mine. Yeah, I kind of try and just do my thing without looking at too many inspirations for the style. Yeah. But I do have a lot of artists that I really look up to, particularly like West Coast of America. Yeah. Daniel Silva, Dmitry Troshin.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Like, just the craftsmanship is just insane. And if I could guest anywhere, I'd probably want to go Vatican Studios. Yeah. And I would love to go and get a piece from Silva. Yeah, definitely. That would be up there. Yeah. What about you for inspiration for your style?
What, as an artist sense?
Yeah.
Tattoo wise, like I said to you earlier, Sandry Rifford for me has taken horror to another level, like in tattooing. You know, like there's what I thought was achievable previous to that, horror wise, he has taken it into another ball game entirely. So he's someone that, not that, like, obviously he does a lot of colour and adds a lot of other elements into his work and whatnot, but again, it's the way he approaches and how he breaks like an image down into how you can put that onto skin is impressive to me. You know, that's why I love horror, like, because there's no right or wrong to it at all. I used to do a lot of very nice, smooth, very pretty lady faces and whatnot, and again, I love to do that, but I got to the point where I was just doing smooth shading. Everything I was doing was smooth, you know, like, and then I started doing a few bits of texture and realised that I could add a few bits in or take a few bits away out of that image to simplify it into a better tattoo. So horror for me is there's every element of tattooing involved in it.
Yeah.
You know, like you're going to have to use small needles, liners, you're going to have to use round shaders, mags, big mags for backgrounds.
And there's a lot of detail, a lot of,
yeah, it's fun.
It really shows in your work, man. You can see how much you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And the compositions I think are crazy. Talk to me a little bit about like how you go about composing those pieces, where you're getting these references from and where the ideas come from for that. What's the inspiration?
The ideas probably come from, I've been a horror fan since I was like 12. So I loved sort of gory horror. So for me, I was always taught, not throughout my apprenticeship, but when I started sort of going traveling, seeing other artists doing large scale pieces, was composition was the bigger the better. You know, like I appreciate stuff that you do because it blows my mind sort of how...
Oh, mate, thank you.
Oh, man, it's crazy. I haven't got the patience to be able to sit there and do something that small, which is one reason as to why I do something quite big as well, you know, because it allows me to get a little bit looser with it. When something's really incredibly fiddly...
But then on the flip side, my brain doesn't work in that way.
Exactly.
And when I look at something at that scale, I'm like... I'm only working in like this size. I'm like, how the fuck am I meant to do all of that in that time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It's hard for, my brain wants to be able to see something completed within a session just because it's satisfying, you know, for me to be able to complete a tattoo. So that's why I appreciate what you do, because it must be so like, to be able to do a piece and actually it be completed within a day or within a couple of days, to me is alien. Yeah. So I have to follow a very specific process before I start seeing how a tattoo is going to come together and how a client is going to see it coming together, you know? So when I do things really big and I'll look at a leg and be like, okay, cool. So how can I make that look like? If I see him from 30 meters away, I still need to be able to see that's a zombie.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I approach it. Like, so I kind of, I split it into 4 pieces. Like literally I kind of approach it how I was, when I was growing up, or not growing up, when I was doing my previous to tattooing, I was obsessed with human anatomy and how the muscle structures create the shape of the skin above it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you can't work out how to cut like a thigh, especially with large scale stuff, if you can't work out how to cut a thigh into certain shapes of a quad, do you know what I mean, a hamstring and a kneecap and everything else, even if you do it large scale, I don't think you'll ever make it fit to a leg correctly. So I try to follow the same shapes in the image, even if it's done big, it has to fit to like a certain area and not wrap too much and whatnot. And again, that composing it that large allows me to kind of get loose with it and also be able to make it hold over a long time.
Yeah.
You know, like for especially within black and grey, like I know with your style, you're obviously outlining and stuff like that. So you're going to be able to hold that shading in. Well, I have to be able to, if I'm doing a face on the side of with no outline on the edge of it and it's just background behind it, you know, I need to be able to make sure that in 10 years time that it's still got that foreground background look to it.
And that's using like contrast, like
contrast and size. You know, it allows me to put a huge area of negative skin that's never, no matter how much their body shape changes or how much they go in the sun and whatnot, that negative skin is never going to take away from the contrast.
Yeah.
So it always will hold as a good tattoo, you know, like over that time.
Do you think you've also kind of been used to working at a larger scale, going back to, if I'm right in thinking you had like a bit of a graffiti lettering background?
Yeah, 100%.
I presume graffiti's quite large scale.
Yeah.
So you have to think big and clear from a distance.
Yeah, that's
Do you think that's probably what's helped you?
1,000,000%. It was.
Talk to me about how you got into that then. How that maybe ended up kind of developing into the tattooing.
It's what got me my job, man. It was literally, I did it for 10 years. I still do it now. I don't have the time to be able to go and paint how I used to, but I do still sketch. I managed to go a few times throughout lockdown as well. It was so much fun, but I'm not built to go up and down ladders for 12 hours a day anymore, man, after 10 years of tattooing. So that transition from graffiti to tattooing, the worlds are so similar. So similar. Like how I had someone, and I'll always rep him and big him up for it. He writes Ecto, like he taught me everything. like in composition, letters, body shapes, because we were sketching graffiti on mannequins and whatnot, you know, when I was 15 when I was doing that. So it was a long time. So we always was able to create flow, you know, like, and doing it on a wall that was, I'd say probably 15 foot high, 45 foot wide. The only way you can project that onto the wall is by obviously doing like a stencil, like essentially before you start doing it. Do you know what I mean? You're sketching it on the wall, but the only way you can see that from a distance is by standing 50 foot away.
Yeah.
So I knew that if, again, like what I said to you, 30 meters away from a client, for me, if it looks good at 30 meters away, it's going to look amazing the closer you get to it. So that's how I used to approach a wall, you know, like, and it was a lot harder to be able to do something on an A3 bit of paper and then translate that to 30 foot without any, I mean, there wasn't, nowadays there's a lot of people that will actually use like a projector and project it onto the wall and mark it on back in the day.
So how did you, because I'm fascinated, how did you used to do that? Are you like literally running up to the wall?
Doing a bit, going back, running up to the wall.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are you just using like a really light paint as a stencil?
No, you use spray paint, so you're sketching it on.
With what? A colour that's close to the colour of the wall?
Yeah, basically, yeah. You're just marking it out.
Because you can just layer paint on top of paint.
That's the great thing about graffiti, you know, like for me, is that there's no
limit to the...
Yeah, you can do anything, you know, you can go up and over anything, you know, like, and it translated so much into my tattooing. When I first started, I did a lot of lettering when I first started, and I still love, if I could change my style to any style in tattooing, it would be lettering.
Would it?
To go around with a biro or a Sharpie and one machine and just custom draw everything every single time. I got tattooed by Norm at Paris convention.
Shit.
Best tattoo experience, like, because he was a graffiti artist, and I looked up to him as a graffiti artist. Before I even started tattooing, I knew who he was. So when I saw him at Paris convention, I was just like, shit, that's Norm. Not even as a tattoo artist, as a graffiti artist. And then he just sat down and drew it on with a pen. He was like, dude, what do you want to get done? And I was just like, that S off your banner. It was just so like, kind of, I just want to be tattooed by you, just so I can see how he sketches it on and his sort of approach to how he does his lettering and stuff like that. And I just love that whole kind of thing where you just rock up. You've seen that person does lettering. He just draws whatever's in his head at the time, and you're gaining kind of something that's custom, but also that's like a sporadic moment in that person's mind. Do you know what I mean? Where you've gone, right, I want the word serenity written, and in his head, he's just gone bang. Like he knows what he's going to do straight away. I love that. Yeah. And it was very similar. That's what I noticed. I used to be like that with a wall. Like we would go up to a wall and challenge ourselves with no sketch and just be like, let's do it.
No theme in mind.
Nothing, like nothing at all, just paint, you know, and just see what comes out of your mind.
Have you thought about, have you played around with the idea of trialing that in tattooing now and doing some lettering? Yeah,
like there's a lot of, one of my favourite styles is, I don't know what you would class it as, to be fair. Do you know mayonnaise?
Yeah, I do. Oh my days. Where it's like he's using a mag, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dragging a mag.
Yeah, you're literally just
it's like calligraphy.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. But I'm not too sure. Some of the pieces I've seen, there's another artist called Keeps 20. Like his work is insane, man. Like how he layers the letters on top of each other
using a flathead paintbrush.
It's crazy
with stenciling.
100%. Like, and again, like I would love to see someone. And I'm sure there are artists out there. I haven't seen it myself, but who would do something large scale with that paintbrush on someone's skin across a back, you know, like, and just draw it and just get something sporadic out of that person at the time.
Do it. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Man, I'd love to see it. So yeah, that was for me, doing that again with the graffiti and then coming to tattooing, and then someone throughout my apprenticeship watching someone freehand a tattoo, I was kind of like, oh shit, this is the same as going up to a wall and doing it. So when someone said to me, okay, freehand it on and then do a line. Obviously, with a tattoo machine, it was a lot more steady, but try to do a line 12 foot long on a wall, you know, like and obviously it's not permanent and it's on a wall, I can go over it and whatnot, but it was the transition between graffiti and tattooing. I felt I kind of had a little bit of a, not head start, but kind of like, it was like I was shrinking down what I was doing on a wall to something this size. And I was like, okay, now it gives me a chance to properly concentrate, you know, like do it. So it was weird, man. I used to take my black book with me everywhere I went. I worked in a call centre,
Okay.
Before I was a tattoo artist, I sold insurance for £1, and I was literally one of them people that would call you while you're eating your dinner.
Mate, I'm not gonna lie though, you'd be surprised how many tattoo artists worked in sales, and similar jobs.
100%. And looking back at it now in hindsight, it helped me and my clients. Having like a sales background, being able to sell your design to a client, is something that they wanted to pick over something else. Again, it helped. But
just being able to talk to people,
100%.
like make people feel at ease.
100%.
People are nervous before tattoos,
Yeah, big time. We forget
lots of trust they put into you.
Yeah, we do forget that as well. But yeah, I took my black book everywhere. I'll never remember the girl's name. Sarah, her name was. She had bright red hair in the call centre, but she come in off her break and she was like, there's a studio in Southend that are hiring apprentices. And I used to sit on the phone and just draw like in my sketchbook all day long. And I took that book down to Urban Ink at the time, and they gave me a 7-day trial on the spot. And I just walked back into the call centre when I quit.
Love that.
Literally. And
like that on Wolf of Wall Street. It's like,
it was literally.
Yeah.
I was so like over it, like doing that job. And I had no idea what I was heading myself into. I'd been tattooed previous, but not in an apprentice setting. I never knew anything about tattooing at all. So it was a shock and a half, like just to go from working a corporate job, to working self-employed creative apprenticeship. But it gave me that push to do it, like just going, I quit and just coming back. And it was hard, man. My apprenticeship was, it weren't easy. You know what I mean? I don't think they should be to a degree. I really don't. But that transition over, in a way, without me doing that graffiti, I wouldn't have become a tattoo artist, because if I didn't have that graffiti sketch to show to that shop, I don't know if I would have ever found a way into that, like in industry.
So were you doing much other, were you kind of working in any other mediums? I know you do a bit of graphite and stuff now.
Yeah. I've always drawn. I've always done commissions jobs. I've always wanted to be an artist as such. I'd say I'm an artist before a tattoo artist. Tattooing is just the medium I choose to predominantly work in. Like a lot of my work I do that's not for my job isn't tattooing. Like a lot of my tattooing is very not loose like such. It's very kind of specific, like the way I would do something. Whereas if I was going to do an art piece, like the one I showed you earlier, the graffiti one, it's splats everywhere. And I like to have the difference like between the two. So I used to, when we was doing the graffiti, we used to get paid for some jobs doing it. And there was a lot of, funnily enough, the crew of people that we had back in the day, I think there was maybe 7 or 8 of us. 5 of us are now tattoo artists. Weirdly, and we all lost contact as well, and all ended up within the same industry. Yeah. So it was weird, like later down the line to see people that I hadn't painted with in years, and one of them actually ended up working in this shop, and then I was like, I've spent my childhood like with this guy. Do you know what I mean?
Why do you think that was?
Because I think the worlds are so similar. Like you have someone, you have a mentor. Like I said to you, that Ecto guy, he taught me everything. Like it was in the same sense of we have conventions. Like in the graffiti world, you have what's known as like a graffiti jam, like, as such. Like where you turn up, you've got hip hop DJs there, you've got break dancers, food, people spraying. 9 times out of 10, the person you're being taught by will take you along to that and be like, and introduce you to the people, your idols. It's the same thing of turning up to London Tattoo Convention for the first time and meeting the people that inspired you to become what you are, So
yeah, these people that you've kind of only really heard about and seen on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're there.
They're right in front of you.
Tattooing.
Yeah, literally,
Oh my God, that's nice.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm like that now. I'm
still like that, bro.
Yeah.
Like there was one time where I went to Paris Convention. Like Philip Lou, to me, is like, he's an absolute god of tattooing, like serious god. And I went to work Paris Convention with Camille, and I always get there super early at conventions. I have to be like prepped because none of my stuff is anywhere. Like I know where it is or anything. So get everything set up, and I was doing that kind of sci-fi type woman stuff that I do. I was putting the stencil on, and I still stencil by hand. Like I don't do anything on an iPad at all. Like it's all done with carbon paper and printed out images. And I was stenciling it and laying it on the guy's skin, and I turned around, and Philip Lou was standing there with like a camera crew and was watching. Even now, so it just makes me nervous thinking about it, because I turned around and was like, oh my God, I just turned back the other way straight away because I was like, what do I say to this guy?
So he's there filming with the crew, like filming?
Yeah, he was walking around talking to artists before the convention started and just chatting to people and whatnot. And I love that, like the fact that he's willing to do that, you know, like, and we got talking, he said about me doing hand stencils and it's nice to see someone still hand stenciling. And then he was telling me how he used to do his dad's stencils on rice paper when he was like 12, you know, like, and if he didn't get them right, the rice paper was so thin that it would just dissolve, you know, like, and for me, that's like something I'll hold on to that like forever. You know, like the Philip Lou sat there and told me about how he used to do his dad's stencils and stuff like that. So I think that's important, you know, like to be able to meet them people and sort of introduce yourself, you know, and say thank you like to these people, because they're not, as much as they are kind of what we would class as nowadays in the industry as old timers, you know, like there's and not willing to adapt to the new side and whatnot. I still think we have to, people like Luke Atkinson, Carrie Barber, Philip Lou, Lau Hardy, you know, like people that we wouldn't have a lot of these styles like without them. You know, like because they're changing, because the industry is changing. There's a lot of people, when I rock up to a convention, I'm like, that's Philip Lou. And they're like, who's that? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, this guy's still handing out leaflets at a convention to get working. You have to write him a letter, like to get an appointment, you know, like that's like, I love that stuff. Like that's for me, that's so kind of, I'm stuck in my ways, but I'm not changing. No. Do you know what I mean? If you want to be tattooed by me, write me a letter, then you get to come and experience the Philip Lou experience. Do you know what I mean?
Which hasn't changed for that long. So you're getting the experience that you would have been getting back then.
So, but because
it's concerning that maybe like as things are advancing, you know, like, are we going to lose that?
I hope not, man.
We're talking about apprenticeships and how apprenticeships should be hard. Yeah. You know, I feel like, do apprentices get an easier ride of it nowadays? Yeah. Is it easier to get into tattooing? And
yeah, I do think there is a much easier. I mean, like I say, when I got my apprenticeship, it was something that was someone kind of said, why don't you try and do this? You know, like it wasn't, I'd been tattooed and I'd watched my brother get tattooed and whatnot, and I actually tattooed for my final art piece in school as well, but it was never something that someone told me could be a career for life. It was always something that back then, because it was still quite underground and taboo, it wasn't something where someone said you can make something out of yourself by doing this. You know, it was something where if you want to become a tattoo artist, you're probably going to end up as an alcoholic, as drug addict, or do you know what I mean, or something like. But it was that kind of perception of it to me was never something that I saw. But obviously I listened to the people that were further down the line in it, do you know what I mean? So again, it wasn't something I kind of wanted to do straight away. When I over to an apprenticeship with how they approach it now, it's much easier to walk into a shop and be able to approach a tattoo artist, I think. You know, like they're
a bit more approachable. Yeah. The studios are a bit more...
100%, you know, like there was, when I first started getting tattooed, it was intimidating. Yeah. You know, like, but there's a part of me that also thinks that that's not okay, because it's the world we live in nowadays and whatnot, you know, like there's no one needs to be intimidated, but you should know that you're walking into a tattoo studio and you can't tell that person how to do their job.
Yeah, I definitely have seen over the course of the last few years an increase in the lack of respect.
Yeah, and that's why I think people can come in and tell you to change your design 5 times.
There's like now a vision of, we're like, to some extent, kind of put in with, there's a lot of industries, beauty, nails, barbering, tattooing, all of this stuff, which is just by some people, not everyone, seen as like a service.
Yeah,
and it's
100%.
Like, you're here to serve me.
100%.
I'm having this tattoo. How much is it going to be? You know what I mean? And it's like,
I wouldn't have dreamed, even in where I did my apprenticeship and stuff, man, like I would have never dreamed if that artist done a design coming in and telling them some of the stuff I've heard, do you know what I mean, in shops over the years and whatnot. And I think a client is entitled to obviously be able to say their opinion and whatnot, but there's that, like you say, that lack of respect sort of in between a client and an artist has got to a point where they're telling us how it should be done.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that if there was that kind of element of they know that what we're saying is 110% correct and we're not saying it for any other reason than we want you to have the best tattoo. Not that they should feel intimidated or anything like that at all, but there should be that kind of level of respect there that they know that we're saying it on a basis that's for them, not for us.
Yeah. Well, they think we're, because tattooing is now quite glamorized.
Yeah.
And they think they're all just trying to make a load of money. They take the piss.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And I think also then you have a small group of tattoo artists ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah, 100%.
And create this negative
100%.
perception.
It should be an entirely chilled out experience that you will never forget. And I can still remember, I was tattooed at 15, so I can still remember the smell of that shop.
That's
all. 17 years ago, like, I can literally smell it right now. Like, I can imagine exactly what that guy was doing and the whole experience of it and whatnot, you know? Like, and I think because of not just that lack of respect from client to artist, but from lack of respect from artist to client, that's changed over the years as well. Like what people are willing to kind of let their clients experience, you know, like throughout their appointments and whatnot, or just throughout the whole kind of experience of the aftercare, the consultation, how you treat them throughout that session, you know. Like, I'm very aware of that the tattoos are expensive nowadays and I should probably buy my client lunch. Do you know what I mean? Like, if someone's coming down and they're traveling to me and they're coming to get a 2-3 day tattoo, like, I want them to feel as comfortable as possible, you know, like not feel like they have to ask me for if they want to go and get a drink from the fridge or something. For me, if they come in and they feel that, I'm doing something wrong, you know, like, and I win again, like what you said earlier, we are not robots.
Yeah.
You can come in a bad mood. We are only human, you know, but you have to still be able to switch that off to a degree, you know, like to allow someone 10 years down the line when they're showing their new family member or something, where'd you get that tattoo done? Oh, do you know what I mean? I had it done by Alex, or like, and they'll explain what they won't probably explain the tattoo.
Well, they'll be like, oh, nice tattoo, but he was a prick.
Exactly. That you can see it's a good tattoo, but they'll probably be like, oh yeah, I remember on the day that someone fell over and cracked their head on the floor. Like, they remember the little things, you know what I mean? Like, throughout the day that's I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about, you know, like I've if I was to kind of have my own place, it would all be about the experience, you know, like I'm trying to make someone walk away with feeling comfortable with the energy that's in there as well, you know, like, and a decent tattoo. And I think if they're comfortable and you're comfortable, you will do a better tattoo.
Yeah.
The work will come out better, you know, like in a more, for you as well, you know, like you'll walk away feeling like you've done something that's credible, and they're going to walk away feeling like they've got something that's good and they've had a good time while doing it.
Yeah.
Because I don't like getting tattooed, man.
So the older you get as well, the more painful it gets. Everyone's like, oh, have you had any more pieces?
Have you had any done recently?
Recently, no, not for a little while.
What's your most cliche question to ask, but what's your most painful tattoo?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you this as well, so we can flip it on. The most painful one for me, I think the most painful tattoos are the ones where you go into the appointment thinking it's going to be a breeze.
Yeah, 100%.
And the ones that turn out to be the least painful are the ones where you go in thinking this is going to be really shit.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's all mindset as opposed to wear on the body.
Yeah, 100%.
I think some places hurt more. The back of my knee was a bitch.
Yeah.
But that was probably because I was actually, because I had my calf done and I knew that was sore.
Yeah.
So I think I should have known that the back of the knee was going to be rough.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe I was just tired.
Yeah.
Being tired, having a drink the night before, that all really affects it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
My armpit was actually okay, whereas the ribs were worse.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the neck I found was quite irritating. What about yourself?
My stomach was probably my worst, man. Like that transition between like your rib cage and like your abdominal area, like man, that felt like there was a hot poker underneath my rib cage. Like it actually put me off tattoos, man, for a good 2 years.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I had it done and was like, I'm not getting another one for a while after that. So they've got a lot worse for me over the years, man. I used to be able to sit like a huge session. I actually found my neck weren't too. I would rather get tattooed over bone than over flesh.
End of your fingers?
No. That's That for me
was horrific. So I had
they were dots as well, man, and I was so sweaty and hot straight. You know, it's like bang, and
it's like you got your hands up there,
yeah.
Like, fuck.
Yeah, it was horrible.
I'm thinking, I put people through this every day. Do you know what I mean?
Do you ever do that when you're getting tattooed and then you realise what you've just done to like a client like 3 days ago and how they handled it much better than what you are at the time? And I'm like, because I know when I've got the piece, so I'm doing an inner forearm, and I know the wrist or like up in the crease, the elbow ditch is going to be the most painful. Yeah. So I'm like, sorry about this one. I always feel so bad for clients, man. Like, especially if I'm doing multiple days. I have no idea how people sit them. Like, that's not something that I don't personally that I could do.
Yeah.
After a tattoo now, like even when I had my arm done the other day, it really. I think the more you get, the more this happens as well. I get like tattoo flu. You know, like I genuinely feel ill. Like
takes it out, yeah.
After I've been tattooed, you know, like I want to go to sleep like straight away. And when I have clients that have come through, I had a girl. I have to say, shout out to Willow. Like she come through from California recently and done 4 days in a row on one of her arms, so literally top to a hand, like shoulder to hand. Went away for a week and then come back and done another 4 days and done her other arm, and didn't even flinch once.
So 8 days over 2 weeks.
Yeah, and didn't flinch. Like I promise you, like I was like halfway through, I was kind of like, you're a warrior.
Is that everything all right?
Yeah, literally. She was absolutely fine. So and again, that's mindset. You know, like that's having that power behind you of kind of, I've travelled from California. I've saved the money to do this. I mean, I've been willing to commit to do that as well. And I think there's a huge element of that, you know, that comes into people's tattoos. Hence why I was saying earlier with making people comfortable. If they are coming in with the mindset of this is really going to hurt, if they then feel comfortable, it's just going to break that kind of ice, do you know what I mean, immediately for them as well. So it's really important, man. Really important.
Have you ever, right, we touched a little bit on it about like, sometimes you're in a bad mood before work and trying to strike that balance. Have you ever got to the point where you've like worked too much and you've found yourself burnt out?
Yeah, I think a lot of tattoo artists parade the fact, but like go around parading burnouts, like as if there's something to be proud of. You know, like I'm really sort of strong on the fact that if what you get out of this industry is what you put into it. Like you have to work your ass off, you know, like you also have to be willing to sacrifice the other stuff that comes along with that, you know, like there's been many times where I've had to take a break from tattooing, not like a months on end and stuff, but even just a few days and go into nature. I often do it. There's like a little place up here where there's like a nature reserve and I just go for a hike. It's completely away from tattooing. I don't even look at my phone, nothing at all, and just take in something else, you know, like, because we are predominantly around a tattoo studio environment. So whether that's just tattooing and whatnot, I'm the worst for it. All the guys in here will tell you, on my days off, I'm in here. I'll come in and hang out in here. you know, I'll do my drawings in here, you know, like, so I have to.
You live it and breathe it.
You have to. If you want to make something out of it, you have to live it and breathe it. But you also have to be able to tell yourself when enough is enough, you know, because I think people's work can change, like your work can dwindle, you know, like you can see it within your own work, you know. We're very self-critical people, just as artists, especially as a tattoo artist anyway. And there's times where I've got to doing a design for a client and whatnot, and I'm just so tired to do it, you know, that I want to sleep and I can't put my all into that, like with a client. So I'd rather have a few days off, recharge entirely.
How do you recognise when that's starting to happen?
For me, it's when I'm getting indoors and I'm just staring at the wall. Like I find it quite mentally draining doing a very long session, which is why I've learned for myself to drop my price slightly and do it over 2 days, where I know that the easiest way to explain it for me, I was having a chat about this with Luke from here actually, is how you create. Not just a tattoo, but like how you create. Like if you were sitting at home and are going to just draw something that's not tattoo related, what would be your approach to that? Like what music do you put on? What pencils do you use? What's your favourite paper? Like it's this. I try to do the same thing with tattooing now. Like most people will tell you that probably fed up of me putting Pink Floyd on in every shop that I go in, but it's because it's.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
I love them, like, but it's just my routine, you know, like how I know that if I'm going to listen to Pink Floyd and whatnot, I break a session down into sections, you know, like so if I'm going to do 8 hours, I know that every 2.5 hours I'm going to break, you know, like, and I'm going to have enough time. I'm not just going to go out and have 30 seconds and come back in and then do it. I'm going to go out, I don't know, maybe have a coffee, a sandwich or something, you know, like have enough energy in me to keep me through that session as well. Because I think as tattoo artists, we're famously good at not even going for a wee or like eating lunch or something, you know, like we're so involved in what you're doing that when I do those days, and I still do them now, where I don't eat and stuff and I'm so involved in it, when I go home, I just stare. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just so zoned out from what I've just done.
I really struggle with that though, because I then get quite a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
With stopping.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're charging a flat rate for the day, and you're happy to just work till whatever hour that day, then I guess it's okay. My concentration, I'm trying to do more smaller pieces than like bigger scale stuff. So I fortunately have forced myself to give myself breaks.
Do you have only a certain amount of clients that you'll take on in a day?
Like,
what's your limit? Like, if
it depends
on the piece, obviously, how long they're going to take.
I mean, I get into work about 8:30 in the morning, start tattooing at 10. Yeah. And I'll go through till 7.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if I can, I'll finish earlier.
Yeah.
Depends on the pieces.
Yeah.
At the moment, I am like bordering on burnout because I'm like doing podcasting. Yeah. Got stuff going on with the studio. Yeah. And I know that if I physically can't fill my days with tattooing anymore, because by the time I've finished tattooing, then I've done all my admin and I've got home. Yeah. I'm a good 35 minutes from home. Then it's like, I'm not eating me dinner till 10 o'clock and then I'm up at 5 for the gym. Yep. And it's
hard, isn't it?
There's no time. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I could do more. I could put more tattooing in, but then other stuff would fall off.
100%. And that other stuff as well might be some of the stuff that's inspiring you to do your tattooing. You know, like, because you've got all the other stuff going on and whatnot. With I think everybody takes, just as artists in general, we take inspiration from a lot of things, you know, like you have to have something that's exciting you, like at the time, to be able to, in the same sense, if we have to have a design in that we're excited to do, you have to have stuff around you. I think a lot of tattoo artists are the same, as we always have to have something on the go. Like we're busy people. Like we don't, personally, I don't know about yourself, but I don't like just sitting still. You know, like I have to be doing something like all the time, or having something to work towards and whatnot. So there's times where I know I need a burnout, but when I'm having a break, it's not just, I can't just sit there and do nothing. Like I have to do something that's going to clear my mind and inspire me. So when I go back to my art and my creative side, I'm like, right, okay, I'm refreshed. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's gym, whether it's, like I say, just going for a walk in nature, or whether it's 9 times out of 10, it is that. And just like leaving the social media world, leaving the like just the normal world, and just going to walk in a forest for a while is quite blissful to me. So, and it helps me to be able to clear my mind, to get back into it. But I think if you can recognize it, that's half of the battle, man. Because I see so many artists where I'm like, dude, you need a holiday. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, like you need just not even a holiday of going and get on a plane, but you just need a break. From tattooing, you know. And I used to watch other artists that I would really look up to on Instagram and stuff, and that were really far down in their career, like 15 years. And I would see them there'll be a point in their work or on their page where you just see them stop posting. Do you know what I mean? And you're kind of like, oh, what's happened to this guy, or like, oh, this girl and whatnot. And then you see him 4 weeks down the line saying, I had to take a break, you know. But like within those 4 weeks, you hear people talking about their Instagram, like, oh, what's happened to this person? They've fallen off. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's not.
So this is what I wanted to ask you, really, because there is this constant background pressure with social media. Yeah. And there would be people like, you've been tattooing a while. Yeah. You've got a good social media following, which is obviously you've done well to build up. And unfortunately now with social media, the algorithm works on the fact that if you aren't maintaining posts, you do fall off. And you said there about how like important it is to sometimes just put your phone down and don't go on social media. Yeah. There will be people that will listen to that and say, well, that's easy for you to say because you've got a big following.
100%.
How and what advice could you give for someone like who feels like they maybe can't just put social media down and feels tied to it?
I'm the same. Like I still, even though I have a following, I'm exactly the same as that. You know, like I find for me, that is the battle. Like when you know you need a burnout, need a break, sorry, because you don't want to burn out, you know you need to put your phone down, you know, but if you do that, you take 4 weeks off. When you come back onto socials in 4 weeks' time, it's not going to be what it was.
You're starting at the bottom again.
Exactly, and you're going to work your way up, you know, like to be able to get back into it. So I've learned over especially throughout lockdown, that was a big one for me. Like it was really hard. I found it incredibly strange to not. I've got certain days that I'll put my posts out and whatnot. You know, like I always kind of keep it the same, so I know that I've got enough time to be able to do it and whatnot. But when lockdown happened, I didn't have any new work to be uploading and whatnot on my stories. It forced me to put my phone down. And there was like a 2-week period where, so for example, I've never let my story die until lockdown, like from my whole Instagram. Like never did I not allow it to get to empty. First time for like 3 weeks, it was bliss.
Yeah.
It took a couple of days, you know, like for me to be like, oh, I'm not going to upload this, or I'm not going to upload me doing this drawing or something like that. But when I did it, I realised how beneficial that is and how much you don't really live in the real world by doing it, you know, like by sort of living predominantly in a social media backed industry. And because we live and breathe it, if you live and breathe it, you also have to live and breathe the social media side of it as well. And again, I do enjoy social media. I think it brings us a lot of opportunities I wouldn't have had without it, you know, like, and I've realised that especially within the tattoo industry, it's beneficial to have one. However, I do know artists, do you know what I mean, that are some of the best in the world that do not have a social media following and don't care about social media, and I'm jealous of that.
What a life that would be.
I'm so jealous of the fact that I'm not uploading that. I've seen some back pieces. I got tattooed by a guy called Ryan Evans, and again, he was one of the, probably for me, top 3 black and grey artists in the world. I saw him do back pieces, leg sleeves that he didn't even take a picture of. Just because, and I was like, that's like one of the best zombie. I'll never forget it. He done 3 days on this zombie back of a leg, like on the back of a thigh, all the way down to a calf, and he done this zombie holding a brain, eating it, and he sent her away and didn't even take a photo. And I was just, it blew my mind that someone would do that, you know, like, because I've been, the only way I knew how to get somewhere within the industry, because I would come from a shop who wasn't promoting guest spotting and stuff like that, was by seeing it on social media. So that was how I kind of did it myself, you know, like the only way I could contact people, and that was what I did really, is I got to a point where I just messaged everybody that I enjoyed their work, seeing it on Insta, and everybody that I looked up to. And what you were saying about business podcasts and stuff earlier, I got that idea from Gary Vee.
Ah, okay.
So I was obsessed with his car. I followed his content since the beginning. Do you know what I mean? And there was a lot of things where he used to say, you want all these opportunities, but you're not DMing 300 people a day saying, can I have this opportunity? So I just thought, sod it, like I'm going to do it, you know, like, and I messaged all the artists that I looked up to, and all the ones that didn't get back to me. I thought, okay, well, I don't want to go and guest for you anyway, because you couldn't really, if you can't even send me a reply, do you know what I mean? Fair enough. I understand it, but fair enough. And the ones that come back were the ones that, do you know what I mean, helped me get that following, to it as well. So
it's so true. Everyone wants it, but
are you going to do the work to get it?
Don't want to put the work to get it.
Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, you have to kind of pick to yourself, I wish I could be a little bit less on my Instagram and stuff like that. And once I've got my own studio, that will be something that'll be the first thing I will do. Like, will be someone who takes over my Instagram and deals with the socials entirely. I think there's a lot of, I've had a few like videos done in the past and whatnot where they offer like social media packages now. You know, like to someone who will do it for you, like, and you're able to sort of concentrate on what's going on. I'd love to have someone like that within a studio environment, who is not only filming the the start and the end of a tattoo, but also filming the stuff in between, so it makes it more relatable to a client when they're coming in.
Yeah, it's something I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Warner is on the camera at the moment. He does a lot of the stuff for me.
Yeah.
But then even then the videography side of it and the film and editing, and then the social, actually managing the socials.
Yeah. And you got to trust someone to do that as well, you know. Like if you've put 5 years plus into an Instagram, we've all seen it. Do you know what I mean? Recently, with people's accounts being taken down and whatnot, and what that can do to someone's career.
Yeah.
Not only that, but also the mentally as well. You know, like if you've put people that don't understand that side of the industry and whatnot, and aren't willing to sort of go into that side of it, don't realise how detrimental that can be if that sort of comes away from you. You know, like it can be huge. It can be a huge loss to someone. So it's I
was chatting with Dean Gunther on the previous episode, and one of the biggest colour artists that he really looks up to had like way over 500,000 followers, I think, and the account got hacked.
Yeah,
and nowadays I think starting an Instagram, like
100%. Was he talking about Dimitri Simone?
I think so.
Yeah, I saw that happen, man. Like he's like the best colour artist there ever was or ever is. Like he's incredible. Like, but in the same sense, he had that taken down. I do not see him begging, or not begging, that sounds really harsh to say, but being like, this has been taken down, can you do this like for me or whatever, because his work speaks for itself. Like he is always going to have clients in, and he's at a level where not many people can touch what he does. So it's detrimental in and
then that shows that at that point social media doesn't really matter anyway.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say with it, is it's so you can use social media to get to a point as to where if Elon Musk decided to turn all communications off tomorrow, do you know what I mean, and Instagram got closed down or something, you don't need that. Do you know what I mean? Because you've built up such an established sort of clientele and reputation for yourself that if that was to happen, do you know what I mean, people are still going to come to you. You're just going to feel a little bit lost. You're not able to showcase your work in that sense. Because I don't have a portfolio anymore. I used to have a printed out portfolio, but my portfolio is my Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, so if it was that kind of stuff was to happen, I would have to go back to going to get my photos printed. Yeah. You know, and doing it that way and getting people to come into a shop and doing it that way around. Because I don't think that I'm not at Dimitri Simone's level. Do you know what I mean? Like where I've been tattooing as long as him and have pioneered that sort of style of tattooing that he does and whatnot. It takes a long time, you know, to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that quite predominantly he comes from the era that wasn't Instagram related.
That's
you know, so that he's put the work in before that stuff even made a difference. Like it helped, but it's not the be all and end all to his era of tattooing.
That's it.
You know, I think that's important as well. What about yourself? Do you enjoy social media?
It's one of those things. I can enjoy it if I'm in the mood for it, and I enjoy getting feedback from it, positive feedback. Yeah. Obviously, everyone does.
How do you deal with negative?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, how do you the most difficult part of it is like you end up finding yourself quantifying the value of the pieces based on how they're perceived and how well 100%. They do. You know, that one doesn't get as many likes, then
100%.
Maybe people think that's a worse tattoo, and it's actually that's not the case. I guess you've just got to use it. I mean, like I said, there was a very small period of time where I wasn't using Instagram before, whilst I was still tattooing, but I was still an apprentice back then.
Yeah.
So, I think I would struggle if there wasn't.
Yeah, definitely.
But I would like to think I was at a point now where I had the work.
Yeah,
enough of the work. So
100%.
It's just tricky. It helps, and it's a business tool that we have to use.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's free.
Well, yeah, it is
free. It might not be coming up pretty soon, but yeah.
That's it.
I did see a few things about, I saw 2 artists actually. Only 2 come up on my, you know, your likes come up on your Insta.
Yeah.
And it come up about subscribing to people's pages. So there's now subscriptions to people's access to their appointments or kind of, I mean, access to their recent designs or something like that. It was Big Sleeps was one of them that I saw, but I didn't click on it.
And what's your opinion on that?
I think it's hard. It's
you can say what you really think.
It's hard. No, it's hard because I I'm all for people getting the most out of their art.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that if, in the same sense of that, I do think a lot of people, especially that are kind of like really exclusive within the industry, you know, like people that are really hard to get in with, and people that are sort of traveling, or like for like Big Sleeps, I mean, in America, like to get a piece done by him, if you're subscribed to his thing, then it's going to cost you, I don't know how much it would be, but say it was $5 a month or something, and you get access to his appointments and you want to be tattooed by him, to me, that's a beneficial thing. Obviously, it's helping him promote his work and stuff like that, you know. But if we're all, I see a lot of clients, and I have someone who does my emails and stuff for me because I have so much and everything else going on. But if I didn't, I'd be doing it myself. And there's sometimes where I would miss those emails in the past, you know, like if I was missing that appointment or missing that email with that client, but they were subscribed to me, they can get access to that. Do you know what I mean? Without having me to feel guilty for not doing my emails and stuff. And if they're willing to do it as well, you're not forcing these people to do that.
It's another avenue. It's another option for clients. And some clients would really like that. Definitely,
exactly, you know?
Definitely think it's something that.
And I think it takes it almost into a degree as to where it's some tattoo artists. Again, because I come from an old school background, I wish more than anything that these artists that were getting the subscriptions and whatnot were people like Philip Liu and Luke Atkinson and people that paved the way, so they deserve that monetary return. Do you know what I mean? Because without them, none of this shit would be happening in the first place. But unfortunately, I don't know, I just don't see that kind of ever happening. I wish it would, because I think it would be great, you know, like to see these people be able to take their work into some of the mainstream areas as to where tattooing is going to go. Like it's not stopping, like situated, it's not going back the other way now.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's so far into the digital world and so far into tattoo artists doing NFTs and whatnot nowadays, you know, like this, it's heading into it being more, I think anyway, more kind of accepted within an art culture than just an underground tattooing culture. Oh man,
it's way out of the underground now.
Yeah, 100%.
As much as people would like to think it still is, it's not.
No, I think really there's elements that are, like there are elements that are still, some conventions and whatnot, you know, like they're still pretty underground, like they're in the sense of how they're run and whatnot, but how actual tattooing is going, for me, I'd like, I saw something, it was a couple of years, I don't know if it was in lockdown or the year before lockdown, but it was, do you know two artists, there was other artists, but these are the only two I can remember, called Moni Marino and Silvano Fiato?
No,
so I don't think I do. Moni Marino does like amazing colour work, like incredible colour work, and Silvano's like he was like one of my black and grey idols. Like, he's just one of the top dons of black and grey.
Well, I'll put the page up as well on YouTube. We'll show this stuff.
They are incredible artists, but they managed to get their tattoos in an art exhibition, so that their tattoos were exhibited as works of art in a contemporary gallery.
Yeah,
and it was actually like there was plaques for them and everything. So, and we're not even talking their artwork; like their actual tattoos were deemed that good. That they were treated as if you're walking in and going to see a painting on a wall in the National Portrait Gallery, sorry. You know, like for me, that's as much as that is taken away from the underground, and I do love the underground side of it, I also love that.
That's the fact that tattooing is getting that recognition.
100%.
Of course, man, and who wouldn't want that? Like, I think it's very close-minded to want to keep tattooing under wraps and gatekept, because 100%. There are so many incredible artists right now. One of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, I want to get out and meet these people like yourself, you know, 100%. Who I've looked up to for so long.
Thank you, man.
And appreciate the work, you know.
Thank you.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand that some artists don't want us to forget the history.
I think it's the values.
Yeah, I
think it's the values of where it comes from, you know, like, and I'll always stand by them. Like there are very much a set of rules that were instilled into me, do you know what I mean, when I first started tattooing, that I think looking back at it in hindsight were not just for the tattoos, but they were also very character building for an industry that can break someone quite quickly if you're not quite mentally strong.
Yeah,
you know, like skin. Yeah, you have to be, like, to be able to take criticism from people 24/7.
And yourself.
And yourself as well, even more so yourself, I think, than anybody else. But when you're first starting and you've got people saying, oh, that's shit, try and do it this way, you know, like, and you've put so much into that. You've got to have such a good mindset to be able to go, okay, that person is telling me the right thing. So I think that sort of stuff should still be instilled into apprentices, and they should be taught the history of tattooing. You know, like, there's a guy in here, Nathan Church, his name is. He's like a book of knowledge when it comes to tattoo history, and it's like sitting around talking to your granddad. Like, when you know, but I love it. Like, when he tells me stuff, I've got quite a bit of extensive knowledge of it, but only stuff I researched myself. You know, It was never something that was taught to me.
Yeah, I got given a big book.
Yeah,
by my mentor.
Yeah, and like, you know,
still got it.
Yeah, they're amazing stories, man. Like how it started, you know, like where the original sort of technology come from, and the people that, especially in the UK, you know, that paved the way. That,
do you know what I find as well is mad is the difference in different countries.
Yeah, 100%.
And their different way of marking the skin for different reasons.
100%. There's a guy down here. If you genuinely wanted to, it'd probably be a good person to do a podcast with, mate. His name's Bert Tattoos, but he's got a tattoo museum down here, and he's got one of the most extensive collections of flash from UK artists that paved the way for all of us to do what we do.
Really?
He's an interesting guy to
I'll get
his
some
knowledge. Yeah, his knowledge and stuff, you know, like just about where a lot of our art comes from, with our sort of traditional style within this country and stuff. I think a lot of that stuff should still be taught, but at the same time, you should be taught that if you want to adapt to the newer side of things, keep those values, but here's a machine that will take out 3 years learning for you, but still learn how to put a coil together. Do you know what I mean? In case that ever breaks. Like I was always taught that, you know, like, I think that's very important to know. But 9 times out of 10 nowadays, I don't see artists teaching people that, you know, like at all, unless it's in a traditional shop.
Yeah, I've got an apprentice at the moment, and I make an effort to kind of teach them as much as I can.
Yeah, it's important.
Of all of those elements, 100%.
It is very important.
But then I've seen and heard of of apprentices now where it's like their mentor is spending 1 day every 2 weeks with them.
100%.
And I don't think that's right.
It's not right on the apprentice.
No, it's not.
Either, you know, like if you're taking someone on, like if you've made that commitment, and it is only a commitment, you know, like between two people, unless you're going down the route nowadays of, I mean, when I wasn't paid. I wasn't paid a penny, you know, like my apprenticeship at all. And everybody who worked in the shop I was in didn't get paid either. Nowadays, I know of some apprentices that do get paid. Do I agree with that? Probably not. But I also understand that where they're at in life makes a difference. Do you know what I mean? If they're 35 and they've got kids and they've got a house to pay for, if they're that good, and I feel that I could put 2 years worth of work into him and get him to a point where he could probably benefit his family and everything else, but I need to give him 200 quid a week so he can do that. If it's someone I'll get on with on a personal, I would do that. Do you know what I mean? I would, but that's a very rare case of kind of your circumstances and everything else, and we get on a really like personal level, you know. Like if it wasn't kind of like that and someone was coming through, I do think it should be the other way. Like maybe not as long as what mine was. I probably could have missed out a big period in mine, do you know what I mean, and got going a bit quicker.
Yeah. Definitely mine was dragged out a little bit for the sake of it. Yeah,
if someone had set up like an itinerary where we're like, okay, every Tuesday we're going to do this, do that, I think it would have made my apprenticeship a little bit sooner. But in turn, looking at hindsight, it made me teach myself. Do you know what I mean? I had no one to really kind of show me. I had one guy, Charlie Webster, his name was, and I'd always shout him out, like, because he showed me a lot in black and grey. But I think if he went to America at the time, and I got left like within my apprenticeship, and from that point onwards, it was like, right, okay, just teach yourself. I knew the basics up until that point from what he showed me, but teaching it myself gave me the drive, like to be like messaging all them people saying, can I come to your shop? Can I come to your shop? It doesn't bother me to do that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I was that person who was
hungry for it as well.
Yeah, because I didn't have everybody to show me. So if I see someone doing something, whether it's, if I was watching you tattoo and I saw how you do a line that I can't do, I'd be like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, because I can't do it. Like, it's not, and I want to learn like as much as I can and take as much as I can out of any artist, not just
knowledge
is power. Yeah, not just my style. You know,
Yeah,
like, I think you learn so much, man. Like so much from other styles without even realizing it. Luke in here does like a lot of geometric stuff and whatnot, and the stuff that he's learned, I think anyway, like from watching him tattoo, like how he can draw on like a Mendy back piece is mind blowing to me. Like literally he will draw on a whole back piece and spend longer probably drawing it on than it would take him to line that back piece. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? I think that to me that's crazy. So I'm sitting there like that, like watching it in the corner being like, how the fuck is that guy doing that? You know what I mean? So it's mind blowing for me. I just love the process of how people sort of approach it and how you would approach tattoo. Do you know what I mean? How do you approach tattoo?
Me?
Yeah, how do you approach a tattoo? Yeah. Like if you were gonna, so if a client come into you and said free reign.
I say I don't like that.
Do you not?
No, I don't.
Do you like a basis idea?
Like
theme?
There are things that I find I enjoy doing. Yeah. But then I almost feel like a lot of clients know what they don't want.
Yeah,
they don't really know what they want.
Know that more than what they do want.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm happy to like. I really like having a bit of free reign, although I would appreciate like just a little bit of direction, as I'm sure most artists would. But I work probably in a little bit of an unconventional manner in the fact that I draw on the day. Yeah. Because I'm doing more smaller stuff now. Yeah. For you, or do you find that's better to having your client in front of you? Yeah. Yeah. Both. And a lot of the time, if they booked a while ago, then they tend to have like changed their mind a bit, or like I don't send the designs out beforehand, obviously, because I draw it up with them. Because I'm doing it on an iPad, I can kind of add things and change things like on the fly if there's anything that they don't like, and 99% of the time they're happy with it, and we can kind of do that. Yeah. And I explain all of that to them in the email, but I work better like that. Yeah.
If they're aware of that before they come in as well.
Yeah. And I vibe off them, they vibe off me, and we kind of just create something together and,
that's important.
And get it on them. Do you know what I mean?
That's important, definitely.
Unless it's large scale work, in which case I do consultations beforehand.
Prep it all.
Plan it all out. Yeah. But if we're talking like palm size up to like an inner forearm size, then I'll do it on the day.
And do you do all your stencil and everything on the iPad?
Yeah, so I'll draw it out. I'll literally draw it all out, and then it's I either use an Epson, like an Eco Tank, if it's like miniature realism, or I'll for like.
Oh, so you're printing it out as the actual image itself?
Yeah.
I saw. Do you know what? I done a guest spot recently at where was it? It was Snappy Gomez at King's Cross Tattoo in London, and I was doing this little. It was like an evil Pope on a girl's leg, and he printed it out, and it come out as my design. Never seen that before.
Have you not?
Dude, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
How do you keep your stencil on, man? Does your stencil stay on? Like,
those what they're good. They are good for like smaller stuff. I don't think I'd do it larger scale.
Yeah, it scared me, man.
Yeah, there's still no substitute really for like actual thermal printing, especially for line work.
But does it stay? Like if you was to wipe, did you have to let it dry for like a long period of time?
Yeah, you're using a slightly different ink, and it doesn't. Yeah, it can stay on for. You've just got to be careful with what you're doing.
That would scare me so much in realism, man. Like if I was doing a big one and I rubbed it and it was just.
Especially with like faces that are like size of a 20p, and you know what I mean. That can be a little bit.
So with your sort of like methoding like for your work and stuff, is it a layer basis to how you work, or are you? Because when I got tattooed by Snappy, right, it was one of the first pieces I had that was like single needle. Yeah, and it was 3 layers, like literally one on top of the other, and I kind of thought it was. Stippled like as you go, like rather than building up. So do you do like?
No, I like work layer.
So you mark it out.
I'm also a little bit like you in the fact that I'm like a bit
all over. Yeah.
Because that's the way my brain works.
Yeah, same.
But I'll go in and obviously get the bits in that need to be in first.
So you don't get rid of your stencil, that type of stuff.
Yeah, the line work I'll tend to do first. Get the line work in, and then I'll focus on the realism element or the primary element second. I get the secondary element done first.
Yeah, okay.
Depending.
So do you kind of put like a base shade if you were doing a face and whatnot? Like
I'll just work just dark to light, then get the black elements, get the contrast in, and then just shade off with that. That makes sense. Yeah,
I've always wondered if they done, because obviously my mum was like a Grim Reaper on there, so it wasn't like a portrait or anything. But if you're doing like a portrait, would you go in or like an iconic portrait, or like a family member? Do you do one layer of all the shading and then do another layer?
And that shit scares the shit out of me. I've got no idea. I don't understand how they're doing these portraits.
Again, like I don't know how I would approach that.
But it's the same with your work. Like I look at your work and I'm thinking, how the hell is he kind of merging those elements together?
Yeah.
Your work has got so much depth.
That's what I try.
Yeah. I think
so. Again, that's layers, man.
Yeah,
like
and that's it. But I can't.
Try it, man. Like try it on like if you're ever kind of doing like a piece that's got like a really definitive contrast between not just the shading and the smooth or just the light and the dark. That was one thing that helped me massively in my work, especially in horror, because there's so much texture, is having a contrast in the image, but also having a contrast in the tattoo itself. So not just dark to light on the image, but also soft shading next to texture.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That makes that creates depth, like in itself, you know. So if I'm doing like a really horrored up face that's got like a scar and a split going down it, I will always put smooth shading next to that texture, so it brings that texture forward towards you. Not only that, but so for like a lot of my blacks and stuff now, I'm pretty confident I can get them. I use a lot of black. Do you know what I mean? With my tattoos, and I can
I don't know. Are you dynamic?
No. So I use fusion.
Okay.
Like
Everything's fusion.
Yeah, everything's fusion. Some pieces, again, I've tried it over the years as well, where I've used different brands over the top of different blacks to be able to create more depth. So if I do like a horror face and there's like quite a bit of depth around an eye, I found that if you use different brands, you can sort of put a black over a black, and one will look darker than the other, so you can make that black look like a shadow rather than like a solid shade next to it. So there's a lot of stuff that I try to experiment with, but for me it was the layered effect of, especially with black in a background, if I'm doing like a real light section on a face and then black and it like next to it, seeing how it heals, and then later down the line, if it needs it, I'll put another layer on it. I never charge a client for it. But if I'm doing like a leg, my way that I approach a leg is I'll do 9 times out of 10, I'll probably start like on the fire, but I'll do one session, and then when I come to the next session, I go over the blacks on that session and then do that session.
Okay.
So I work going over then one, then over then one, then over and one. So by the time I get to the top, it's the most saturated the skin could actually be. Because there's only so much saturation the skin will take within, especially in realism, and with how long we're spending within an area, before you overwork that area. So if it takes me 2 times to do it, I'm going to do it 2 times.
Yeah. And the client's going to appreciate that at the end of the day. They're for life, aren't they?
They've seen the difference. I've very recently, first client I've ever had, he had a back piece by Matthew James and Gorski. He had that collab back piece they did recently. And I saw it in between 2 passes. And he actually was the first client who come in for a consultation and said, I want 2 passes. It was a thing. Like, it was an actual thing that he was like, I'm willing to pay. And I was like, dude, I don't do that. I do it this way so you don't have to pay that. I do that anyway. But he was, so have you heard of Lead the Followers on Instagram? Jordan Fino. He's like a tattoo.
Rings a bell.
He's a tattoo collector who had like a lot of work done by Nico Tardo. He's got like a black and grey sleeve by Nico. I'm pretty sure his legs done by Nico as well. He's got like some of the best black and grey artists on there, but he basically come up with this thing. Lovely guy as well. I've done an interview with him recently, but where he's teaching clients as to how they should approach going to an artist of a certain, or not of a certain stature. That sounds really big-headed to say, but like it's not meant like that. But like, as in, if you're going to an artist who has a certain way of how they work, this is how you should approach going to that artist.
Okay.
And one of those things that he was teaching, and it's like a course that he gives to people, was to ask for second passes on any tattoo.
Oh, advice for clients.
Yeah, advice for clients. So when they're approaching a tattoo to go into an artist and say, okay, cool. Like we were doing like, he wanted like an elephant on his shin. And then the reflection of the elephant as if it's going up to water coming down to his toes, like all the way across his foot. And he was like, I know that the foot's going to need a second pass. I want my toes blacked out. I don't care how many times it takes for him to be black. Like, I know it eliminated so much of my consultation because he had said it for me that I was just like, I remember saying to him, dude, like, we need to frame you and put you on the wall and being like, this is how you walk into a tattoo appointment if you want a free reign tattoo.
Yeah.
And I think there's something I spoke about it with my colleagues in here recently, that I might put a post out explaining to clients what free reign actually means, because I don't think they quite grasp it. Like, because your idea of free reign is you like a bit of direction. My idea of free reign is
like anything.
They're predominantly going to want a horror tattoo. So I'll just pick you a horror tattoo that I know is going to make a great tattoo. You know, like but I also have had people that will come through and I'll pick something for them. And they're like, dude, I am not getting that tattooed on me.
Yeah,
like, where it's
like, hang on a sec. Yeah,
you said free reign.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So
that's not free reign. Everyone's got a different definition for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it comes down to artists and sort of clients' perception of what they deem as free reign. Because a lot of artists, if you're going to do something that's one of your designs and whatnot, will be like, I'll do it half price.
Yeah.
Or something, you know, like, and then it's free reign. So if a client comes in thinking that, or they know how to approach that situation before they come in, I just think it's like the little white, like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
Like, they've come
to it's so nice. There are like some clients and it's just like,
yeah,
the best.
And then, but I also
Super
find
chilled.
the other ones, man, where they're the opposite. It's like challenge. I'm like, dude, I'm going to change your mind so you walk out of it with a good impression and knowledge that if you go to anybody else, you're not going to have the same experience of what you've just had, you know? So I think it's good to, things like this are great podcasts, you know what I mean, are a great way to be able to get that information out to clients from an actual artist perspective that's not in a consultation, that's just in a chat between two people about not how they should approach it, because there's no real right way to do it as such, but just little bits of advice that if you see on Instagram an artist saying, I've got a cancellation, I want to do free reign, don't then turn up with a bunch of ideas and get the ump when you're turning up saying that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If that takes you doing a podcast for that to get over and that then changes how then people do that, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Because it takes that guilt away from us.
Yeah.
Where we start feeling like we're not giving them what they want.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's it all starts with like the knowledge of what that client has got when they're walking into a studio. Because we do it on a day-to-day basis, expect that client to know what free reign is, how we're going to work, how we're going to do it, because we've got on Instagram and whatnot.
We've put out this perception.
Yeah. And some people don't watch your Instagram all the time, so they might not know this, they might not know that. So when they come in, that sort of challenge can be difficult and start an appointment on, not a bad note, but like on a stressful level, which is...
I've had that, and I've sometimes let it affect me too much, to be fair.
Yeah, it's hard not to, man.
Yeah, like if the client comes in and they're like, I don't like it, or it's like...
You take it personally.
And they come in and there's like a front because they I feel like some clients come in through the door expecting us to be quite rude.
Yeah.
Because there's an expectation that tattoo artists are quite intimidating.
100%.
So they come in with a bit of a front on them.
Yeah.
Then realise that actually we're not.
Yeah.
We're just normal people. Then they look like the idiot. Then realise they look like the idiot.
100%. And then it's got this like weird vibe where you're kind of like...
There's like a standoff.
Yeah.
I've had it before with clients, and then after a while they calm down.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, you didn't need to be like that to start with.
Yeah, 100%.
But now you've put me in a bad mood and I'm meant to be tattooing you for life. So
it's like, that's it, exactly that. And you know, like there's part of me that I've had clients over the years, you know, where I've turned that down. Like I've literally said, I'm not tattooing you.
Yeah.
Like not because it's me being arrogant or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not an ego thing or an arrogance thing, but it's like we are human.
Yeah.
And we like, it sounds really like diva-y, but we do have to be in the right headspace creatively to be able to produce that stuff.
100%, you know, like, and not only that, but I would never want to put something on someone where they're walking away. They're gonna have an opinion about that standoff. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of whether that opinion is, oh, okay, he taught me something I should have learned or whatever, having that as like that thing straight away, I'm kind of like, dude, just come back on another day or something, like where, do you know what I mean, where we're not doing this Mexican standoff to start with, like straight away. Yeah. And then there's this vibe here, like it should just be as chilled as possible. It's a painful experience you're going through. You don't need it to be stressful then painful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? After I'm not into that stuff, man, at all. So, but I understand why people would see it as arrogant sometimes and whatnot. But it's more kind of, I know how best to create. You know, like, and my best sort of scenario for a client and best scenarios for me is we come in, we chill,
bang some Pink Floyd on.
Yeah, and that's it.
And we're
like,
good.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing more to it than that, you know, which is why now I try to get a lot of stuff prepped beforehand to take that out. Like, a consultation helps me so much, man. Doing that all via email years ago was, it didn't work. You know what I mean? As much as it took away the stress for me from doing it, the stress come when they turned up. Do you know what I mean? And it was kind of, I had eliminated a lot of the stuff that I could have just got done in a consultation for a couple of hours with a client.
Yeah.
That I can prep it and know. Do you have certain tattoos that you know that you've done where you've followed your process in your head as to what you can do, and you know that the day's kind of gone better for doing it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you've prepped something within a certain way where
oh my God. Yeah, 100%. I always thank myself when I've kind of pre-drawn elements, and I'm like, well, why don't I just do that more often? But then life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you get yourself into that flow state where you're just zoned in on the tattoo, and you're like, the day's flown by, you get the tattoo done early.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like,
and you realise there's a certain process as to how you work best.
But sometimes, like, especially with me running a shop, sometimes I'll get a shitty phone call in the morning.
Yeah.
Or like a client will walk through the door and cause some drama with another member of staff who's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the aestheticians has a nightmare with one of their customers in the shop.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, I need to just take a minute now.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
Now I'm distracted from that tattoo.
Yeah, how many days a week do you work still?
5.
So you're doing 5 and your podcasts and running a studio as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's hard, man.
6,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take on, you know, like on your plate and whatnot, and still be able to.
But you know, I love it.
But that's how you work best. Do you know what I mean? Under pressure, some people.
I guess I do. Yeah, I do definitely work best under pressure, and that's just the way it's going to be. I think for a while.
You might feel weird, like if everything levels out and you're like, I'm going to work 3 days a week. And
I hate it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm always like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'll never stop. You know, you never do.
No.
Yeah, bro, I'm not joking. I could literally just sit here and talk to you all day. There's so many other things that I want to have a chat with you about. But I guess I wanted to know really now, just moving forwards, is there anything in your life right now that you're really excited about, and your plans for the future, like with conventions and guest spots?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot. I've got a lot coming up. The elite guest spot next week is huge for me. Like, that is my pinnacle. Like, London convention was always the thing that kind of got where I was like, once I got into that, like, that was always what I wanted to get into. But this, for me, is on the same par as. So it's that the guest spot next week is going to be killer, purely because I'm excited to see some of how my idols work. Do you know what I mean? And how I can pick their brains, because I'm going to be around them like a sponge, literally trying to take in everything.
That is a room full of insane artists.
Yeah, 100%. You know, so it's, for me, it's getting to learn more. Towards the end of the year, there's a few more conventions. There's Rome convention coming up, which is, you should check that out, actually. It's the Urban, God, I can't remember the name of it now. Urban Land Tattoo Expo, I think it is. That's a really cool one. Turkey convention, it'd be my first year going to that one. And then Brussels, which is a really good convention.
So you got a few on the go.
Yeah, four coming up within 6 weeks, I think it is. So it's a hectic month and a half. And then after that, it's chill, so. If
there's anyone that wants to get booked in with you right now, what's your wait list looking like, and how long?
Waiting list at the moment is probably, if I remember rightly, it's May 2023.
Yeah.
I open my diaries 3 times a year. When I say that, I still take emails on. Do you know what I mean? If someone emails me and it's something that's
sick idea,
yeah, I'm gonna take it. Do you know what I mean? I only really open them just so I can deal with them all at one time. So yeah, I booked up until May next year, and it's all dealt with via email now, really. So that's the easiest way for me to handle it with a client, to get you into for a consultation, is to keep it in one element of kind of contact with a client via email. Yeah, more
nice. It's just more manageable, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, it's much more manageable. Especially, I do answer Instagram, obviously, but I'll always kind of guide it over to email to talk about prices and everything else. You know, I don't like doing it too much over Insta.
Yeah, sweet.
What about you?
Sick. I'm not doing I was doing the books open, books closed thing.
Yeah.
I was like, before I stopped doing it, about 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And then it was just getting way too much.
Yeah.
Because I was working 5 days a week, including every Saturday.
Yeah.
Events were coming up in my life, and I didn't want to cancel on clients because I hate it when they cancel on me.
Yeah.
So I was then like, I felt like I was just a slave to tattooing rather than like enjoying it. 100%. So I've stopped doing that now. I worked out my wait list, finished that off, and then I just book. I just way more picky.
Yeah.
Book stuff that suits my style.
Yeah.
Only take on what I'm doing, and I've got about a 2-month wait list, and that is more than enough for me.
Yeah. That's what I want to try and do that myself, man. Really, that is my next step, is to bring down the waiting list.
Because I knew I wasn't going to bring down the amount of days I was working a week.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know what I do. Like,
100%.
I mean, I could probably do with coming down to 4, just to give myself the 5th day would be podcasting.
That's what I do.
And then I can have a couple of days off.
Yeah.
One would be admin, and one would actually be a day off.
100%. Yeah.
But you know, we live and you learn.
And then it's sticking to that as well, isn't it? It's having the 4 days and then actually doing that on the days that you're meant to do it and everything else. But
man, but you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, it is the best job in the world, man. The only other thing really would be guest questions as well. So you were left a question by your previous guest, which I actually think is really cool.
Go on.
What is a small amount of money that you've spent on something that you use all the time?
Oh, that's hard. Probably. Do you know, it's really silly, but it's probably the table that I use to lean my reference on when I'm tattooing. Literally. And the only reason being is because it turns just enough to stop the light from going down onto it.
Love it. Bro.
It cost me £4.
That's it. I turned up to a guest spot the other week with like a tripod for my iPad.
Yeah.
20, 30 quid off eBay.
Yeah, man. It was
and game changer.
100%. Like the amount of times it took me to realise that when I was having my reference like this, I can't even bend my arm. I had my reference like that, and then I just tilted it just slightly like that, and I saw how much the black went from like shiny to matte, and I was like, dude, I can see my reference.
See what I'm doing.
Yeah, literally straight away, and it was only because it tilted that little bit further.
It's the little things, isn't it?
It is,
like
100%.
Life now is all like the price of everything has gone up so much. You find myself spending extortionate amounts of money on the most stupid shit.
Yeah, 100%.
And actually, you know what I mean, there are things like that.
100%. 100%.
So
do you find, obviously with working your 5 days and doing your podcast and whatnot, do you spend a lot of money on sort of new equipment and stuff like for tattooing? Is it something that, because I'm like, at the moment, I'm going through this like frenzy where I'm like, dude, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to try this, I want to try that. Are you constantly, or do you stick with what you know?
I do like trying stuff, definitely. I would try everything.
Yeah.
I've kind of gone through a few machines. I've got every Bishop one now, and I can just pick which one suits what I'm doing.
I've heard they're really good, man.
They are really good, although there are some machines that I want to try.
Yeah.
Like everyone raves about, like FK Irons bits and Spectra and all of that. I want to try some of those. Needle-wise, I'll always flip between them. I'll buy a box and stuff, and especially meeting people through the podcast, they recommend stuff, and I'll try that.
What do you use now?
I'm super easygoing. Like, I really like Killer Ink stuff. Yeah. I know you're sponsored by Killer Ink.
Yeah, Killer Ink are amazing. Yeah,
I like their needles.
Yeah,
and
they're awesome.
I'm an advocate for Magic Moon.
Yeah,
like Magic
Moon.
Magic Moon. Still looking for a sponsorship, by the way.
Yeah, Quadrant
are sick.
They're amazing. I'm sponsored by Atlas Needles as well. They just brought out some new round shaders that they are. That's not even me trying to plug them either. That is genuinely, like, I tried them recently and they are incredible.
Yeah.
But I have different brands for different types of how I approach it in the skin. So it's the predominantly the bigger needles.
What's the go-to then? Machine and needle? Mainly.
Go-to machine will always be Inkjector.
Yeah,
like always.
And again, another sponsor.
Yeah, but I used them before they sponsored me. So even if I wasn't sponsored by them, I'd still use their machine. Like, it's an incredible machine. I do switch between machines if I'm trying to, depending on skin types and stuff as well, because if I need a harder hitting machine or something like that, sometimes an Inkjector will not approach, how I approach it will be different.
What is that is that like a 3.5 mil?
Yeah, 3.5, yeah. Sure. But it's the reason I love it so much is there's no volts on it. So it goes on feel. So there's like a dial on the side of it and you just tilt it like to your desired voltage. and you go through what it feels like in your fingers. And that's how, when I was first like being taught how to tattoo, especially when I was lining, it was a case of that I was stretching with these two fingers, and if he always used to say to me, if you can feel the vibration in these two fingers, as if it feels like you're being tattooed, you've hit the right depth.
Yeah.
As to where you are,
and you've got the right stretch. Yeah,
it's the same thing with the inkjet because you've got no volts. You feel it, like whether it's in the right depth or whether like what your throw is or how it goes off of your hand speed. So you can only get the right sort of sweet spot if your hand speed is matching that voltage. So if
you approach them?
Find it. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, did you approach that brand because I feel like they're really always like putting, they're like really out of the box with their like machines and the way they kind of do
it's
stuff.
Completely different to other. It's even how it goes in the skin is completely different. I've tried all machines, all new ones, all FK irons, everything, and an inkjector for me is how it's a lot quicker in the skin, and I've got quite a quick hand movement. I see a lot of people, and I very much would love to be able to tattoo like this, but when they're literally just like doing this, like brushing the skin, I'm not like that. I'm very much I'm a lot quicker than that. So they are something that when I first started using them, I knew straight away that it was good for how I work. And again, at the time, I swear it was like some kind of like manifestation thing that I did, man, like because I was messaging all those people to go to, not because I wanted a sponsorship, but I wanted to see another artist who used the machine, who was sponsored by them and used them longer than I had, if they could show me anything that I didn't know about the machine. So I messaged John Lewis, shout out to John Lewis, and I can't remember his name, Life and Death Tattoos in Shrewsbury. He was the only person in the UK that was sponsored by Inkjector. I went and done a guest spot there, and then that night, the Inkjector messaged me and said, do you want a sponsorship?
Yeah, it's weird how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, so, and it was, again, at that point, I was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe it's the the networking side of it as well, like, obviously it helps to have a following and everything else, but they're super cool, man. Like, it was literally just, bro, do you want a sponsorship? It weren't, hey, man, this is what we need from you, do you know what I mean? It was like, do you want a sponsorship? We'll send you some machines. Please make sure you tag us in your photos. And if you do use any other machines or whatever, then obviously be mindful if you're filming or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like they know that like they're not silly. Do you know what I mean? And most tattoo artists have got an array of machines that they're going to use. Like, so, it's a promotional tool for them, but they're great. Like Byron and the guys from Inkjector, they are awesome, man.
I'm a real advocate for sponsorship and all this sort of stuff. I think some artists get a bit weird about it. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm selling out, but
you're not.
I think it's really good. Like and I'm all about like helping each other out.
100%, man. And it's just a case of them sending you a product, and the amount of people that I've actually given an Inkjector to and said, please try that. Like, I'm not just doing it because I'm sponsored by it. Like, it's an amazing machine. Like Fusion, another one as well. The amount of people I've put onto Fusion Grey Wash because they're like, dude, what inks do you use? How does it heal like that? Well, there's the ink. Try it. Do you know what I mean? That's what they get out of a sponsorship, is that I'm actually going to try this ink.
I have heard about the Fusion Grey Wash.
It's great,
stuff.
man.
I need to try it.
It's really, really good stuff. Like, really, really good stuff. It heals incredible, and it's, for me, how my work heals, how I want my work to heal. It's got like a cool tone, like to the Grey Wash. Whereas some have got a warm tone and a cool tone.
Slightly more, not blue, but it's got, more of a bluey
when it heals. Yeah, exactly. That's the same with the blacks and everything as well.
You can feel like you can kind of see that in your work.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I wanted to go for, Like,
you got that. It's really consistent. Really, like the style is insane.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, 100%. And you can see why the work looks the way it does because of the way that you are as a person. You're obviously very determined. It's just trial and error through so many years.
It is, man.
It's been really good to just sit down and have a conversation with you about it.
Definitely, man. And you, dude, it's nice to pick someone's brain about tattooing for a while and just about life, and just it's nice to see your approach to it. And I say I love the idea of these podcasts, man. I think it's awesome to be able to sit down and talk on a normal level. Do you know what I mean? About something that, quite frankly, I think most tattoo artists are pretty similar. Like, we've all got very similar, not upbringings, but I think we all kind of want to be part of this cool thing. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of, and most people's opinions and stuff, if you sit down and actually break it down, are quite similar, and you can learn a lot. Like, from doing this, I wouldn't have learned, do you know what I mean, the stuff I've learned from you today, and you not from me. Like, this, I appreciate that. Do you know what I mean?
Same here, man.
Like, from not just a tattoo level, but just on a human level, man. It's nice to just sit here and talk to people, especially after lockdown. Do you know what I mean? And not having all the time away from people and stuff. It's, to me, this is what it's about. We should be able to exchange knowledge. Do you know what I mean? And kind of move forward, man. Really, together as well.
No, it's exciting. We're all like strapped in on this ride, you know.
100%. Yeah, and I have no idea where that's going to end up, but it's a fun journey, to say the least. So
100%. Well, all I can say is I'm excited to see where you take it, you know.
And you, man.
Hopefully, I'll see more of this lettering. I hope your guest spot goes well. And you got it sounds like you got a bit of a busy year. So.
Busy few months coming up. Man.
Good stuff.
I'm excited to see you with the podcast as well, dude.
Thank you, mate. I'm just gonna keep plugging away at it, and I'm just enjoying doing it. Like I said, even just purely selfishly, I just like going out and meeting other artists.
One question for you.
Yeah.
If you could do a podcast, not even tattoo related, with anybody, who would it be?
If I could chat to anyone.
Yeah, if you can just sit down for a podcast with someone, like who would
Dead
it
or
be?
alive?
Yeah, 100%.
Man, I mean, there are so many.
Yeah.
Who would I love to sit down with? Historically, like, oh my God, I don't even know.
I thought as soon as you said about doing the podcast,
I tell you what, you mentioned him earlier in this podcast, and I think he would be someone really, really interesting to speak to. It would be someone like Elon Musk.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Just like really forward-thinking people.
Yeah, 100%.
There are geniuses of our time.
Yeah.
Some alive now and some who are gone, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, that would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down. Like even Joe Rogan's podcast. With
Joe Rogan would be...
Joe Rogan would be a good one, like 1,000,000%. 100%.
I just like people who are open, like, and I'm quite spiritual. Same. and just very interesting. Everyone's got such different perspectives on stuff, you know?
100%.
Yeah, God, that is a question. I will walk out this door and I'll go, that one.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same, man.
Do you have a question to leave for the next guest?
If money wasn't an object and they had no tattoos, who would they get their bodysuit by?
Okay.
Like I'm always intrigued to see sort of like what if artists could go back to bare skin and where they are in their career now, what they would go for, what would you go
Style
for? If you went back to no tattoos, sorry, and money was no object, and you could go, I'm gonna go and get my whole body done by this person, who would it be? Okay,
so I really appreciate large scale realism. I love it, and I do want a lot on my other leg.
Yeah,
but I am a big fan of traditional patchwork.
I see you like sort of little bits.
I like lots and lots of little bits. Artists like H.B. Nielsen.
Yeah.
So compositions in that style. Although I'd want the traditional style designs, but done in a real single needle fine line style. Although I love large scale dot work and I love large scale realism.
Yeah.
So artist wise, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
But like
style wise, you know,
it would be the same artist to do all of that stuff.
100%.
And what about yourself?
Philip Lou.
Okay.
All day, man. I saw one. I used to guest at a shop in Palmer's Green called Ink Lounge, and there was a guy there that come through called Tattoo Derek, and he was Philip Lou's apprentice. Not Philip Lou's apprentice. Orient Ching's apprentice, and he had a full bodysuit by Philip Lou that was free-handed. It was incredible, like the way, like it was literally just a hanging mask and waves as well, nothing more. And I'm talking arms, legs, everywhere.
Yeah.
And the way he had made it flow around was incredible. And one of the best things I've ever seen in tattooing is there was a few bodysuits where he signed them. So he was that, like, it literally says Philip Lou, and then there's a circle that comes off of the U, and it's just at the bottom. And I was just like, dude, I love that. Like, you've done a bodysuit on someone freehand and then just gone and signed it at the bottom. You know, for me, he was the first person I saw do large scale tattoos that were legible and readable from a distance. You know, so that was the first time I thought I want to do something like that. Like, was when I saw how he did it. Hence why I do faces the size of what they are. So again, it's learning someone from traditional Japanese, do you know what I mean? That I've taken that and gone, right, cool, I'm going to put that into horror tattoos.
Yeah.
So
the possibilities are endless with it, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
No, it's exciting,
that's the good part about it for me. So yeah, I'll be intrigued to hear what they say, because I'm always intrigued to see. Because I think we start with such a naive view. Even as a tattoo artist, as an apprenticeship, you're still very naive as to what you deem as the pinnacle of tattooing and what you want, do you know what I mean, or where you are in your life and kind of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm always intrigued to see what people would pick out just randomly as well.
Yeah.
Do you know, I think it's weird, like how sort of like celebrities and whatnot have got all the money in the world, but will go, and I don't like to speak badly on anyone's work.
What's about tattoo artists?
It's some of the people that I've seen celebrities work is bad,
I think I said this to one the other day, like, you can be minted and have no taste.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Like if I was like celebrity multi-millionaire, I'd be walking into a shop and going, there's 50 grand, close the shop.
Yeah.
I'll pay for everybody's day rate in here. I'll pay for all your clients as well so they can leave or whatever, and this is what we're going to do. Do you know what I mean? Or not that I would expect an artist to go, yeah, cool, like I'm going to close it. Do you know what I mean? But I'd definitely be like, here's a little bit of extra money so I can get the best tattoo artist in the world, or that you deem to be the best in the world.
Yeah, I'd be spending it on flights to go and see.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, definitely.
And I think it's all about travelling. You have to travel, you know, like I travel to go with my haircut, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it looking at my hair, but
it's a good fade, man.
Bro, this guy, mate, he's like,
I used before lockdown, mate, my hair was like yours.
Shout out Callum from Smoky Barbers. But that guy knows how to do a fade, I'll tell you that
it's all
now.
about a fade, man. I used to, every 3 days, mate, I used to get my hair cut until lockdown. Then I thought, I was 30 in lockdown. I thought I want long hair once in my life before I start losing my hairline. So I thought I'll keep it long and then just keep it long until it grows or gets rid of.
No, it suits you, man. Looks good.
I'd rather have hair like that, mate. It's a bit too hot for long hair, I'll tell you. Yeah. It's way too hot. But yeah.
It's
been a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, it's been good, man. Thank you for having. Cheers for you. Appreciate you opening up.
Oh no, don't see this. Fun.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks again.
Yeah,
man.
No worries, man. Thank you for having me, dude.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast this week. Don't forget to hit the bell icon and the follow button to be notified of every new release wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is the 21st Century Tattoo. Thanks for listening.